Good evening. The hour being after 6:45, I'd like to call the October 13th, 2022 school committee meeting to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, and our first order of business will be the high school student report, and tonight we have an experienced representative, Colin Mahoney, and our new student representative, Favor Nyendi. We will be glad to hear what you both have to say.
Good evening. I'm Colin Mahoney, and I'm a junior at the high school. Right now at the high school, we are about halfway through term 1, and progress reports are posted to your X2 Aspen account, and they came out yesterday. Yesterday, all juniors participated in the PSATs, and picture day retakes are on November 7th. Student Council hosted a cornhole tournament last Friday to raise money for breast cancer awareness. Walpole Scholarship Foundation's Trivia Night is happening on Saturday, October 15th at 6:30 p.m., and this event will be held at the German Club in Walpole. After-school clubs and activities are up and running. The Random Acts of Kindness Club meets every Friday, and the first Best Buys meeting is this upcoming Monday. Our fall sports teams are about halfway through the season. Our teams are faring well. Today, our unified basketball team played in Natick. Boys and girls soccer, as well as the volleyball teams, played against Needham. Tomorrow, volleyball plays Bishop Ian. The swim team has a match at Brookline, and then football team will be in Braintree. Winter sports registration is now open. That's all I have for this evening. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Do you have anything you want to add, Favor, or are you just...
I'm all set.
You're all set? Okay. You're both welcome to stay as long as you want, and we also know that you have busy lives, so if you don't, that's fine too. So the next item under new business is a review of some curriculum. Dr. Goff?
Yes, we have our EL director, Jim, oh, no, sorry, is that, I'm gonna hand it over to you. I have
Send it
Al
to me first before.
I'm gonna send
so.
it to Dr. Hahn. for
All right.
curriculum.
So I just want to make a note. I'll be given I'll actually be using some slides to guide a brief summary on the curriculum focus and development for this year. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware that what I'm using in the slides is coming from this information. This is a more comprehensive packet. It's nothing new. There's just a lot here. So I wanted to be a little bit more focused in my presentation and the slides that I presented for those watching at home. So with that said, this is also an expanded curriculum development and review because I think we're starting to see the positive effects of not just focusing on COVID and all the things that are involved with that. And so for me, at the end of the summer and the start of the fall, I just start to take notes and start to, as comprehensively as I can, summarize our focus for the school year in curriculum. And I found this year there was a lot more moving parts, and that was actually a really exciting thing. But I think really important that we report on some of those things and give a brief summary as best I can at this point in the year. So with that said, I've organized you can go ahead and put the slides, oh, they're up, I'm sorry. I've organized the slides into 3 parts, K-5 literacy and math, 6 to 12 humanities and math, and then a slide that's for district-wide focus. So as many of you know, in the last 3 years, we have been implementing the Readers and Writer workshop model across all of our elementary schools, grades K to 5. We know that was a really successful implementation of this curriculum, but we also did it during some chaotic and interesting years of COVID. So as we transition into our 4th year, we didn't want to just abandon and say to our teachers, oh, you're all set, we should be in a good place with the Readers and Writer workshop. So we maintained our relationship with Claire Lanigan, the consultant we work with over those 3 years, and she'll be doing some continued work with our literacy specialists and work to support and guide interactive read aloud workshops for all of our teachers. In addition, to strengthen our phonics curriculum, we've expanded our foundations curriculum to grades 3. It was currently running grades K1 and 2, and we started advanced word study in grades 4 to 5. Just to say a few words about advanced study, if it's new for some of you, advanced word study, is being implemented to build on the foundation of grades K to 3 in terms of syllable types and morphology. If morphology is new to you, it is to me as well. Prefixes, suffixes, and roots is what I would think of to read, write, and understand multi-syllabic words. So that's the main emphasis for our K to 5 work this year with literacy. We will continue to implement year 2 of our literacy and dyslexia assessments for all grades K to 5. That was mandated by the state for grades K through 2, and we've expanded ours to go all the way from K to 5. The biggest programmatic implementation this year across our entire district is with our grades K to 5 math curriculum, where we fully adopted the Math Learning Center Bridges curriculum resources and Number Corner for all elementary schools and students. We are incredibly excited about these resources and what our teachers will have at their fingertips to teach math at all of our elementary schools. There were a lot of resources, and much like the Readers and Writers Workshop, we know that it will not just be a simple 1 year or 1 month implementation, but rather take several years to do. We do have some supports in place to ensure that we're successful. We have a consultant working directly with our math specialists to map out our year and to provide PD and support to them. And we've also adopted a data tool called Forefront that works directly with Bridges curriculum to ensure that we can keep data around student benchmarks and student assessment for analysis purposes. This year, there will be a very strong emphasis and focus on improved writing skills. For grades 6 to 8, that's going to manifest itself in a few different ways. Jody O'Rourke, who is our new Humanities coordinator, has began the implementation of middle school composition notebooks to assist students in housing guided notes and to access during instruction to create a place for a variety of writing tasks. We are excited to implement at the middle school level an argumentative writing unit at each grade level, and Jody is working with both the ELA and social studies departments to ensure that we have more comprehensive and, just as importantly, aligned writing rubrics. Our goal for 6 to 8 as well is to fully implement digital writing folders by the fall of next year so that we start to match with our high school and that we have a comprehensive writing digital portfolio for all students grades 6 to 12. So we're starting that process and starting that conversations with our teachers to ensure that we're successful by next fall. Across all grades 6 to 12, we're always evaluating new text selections for literature circles to make sure that we are providing multiple viewpoints and a broader range of diverse texts. That's ongoing and something that we've done for many years, but certainly a strong emphasis for the work that we've been doing the last couple. And finally, in the humanities, we are excited that we're in year 6 of implementing history curriculum rollout to align to the new Massachusetts frameworks. Some of you might remember Department Chair Mike Donahue coming to report out on the implementation of those frameworks. And we started that work. Actually, Dr. Goff and I were in the role of principal at the time. And we're really, really excited that that's now to our 11th grade social studies, which will now be U.S. in the modern world. And then finally, for talking now about 6 to 12 middle school and high school mathematics, we are really working to improve data analysis resources and teachers' PD to adapt our instructional math practices. So I want to talk a little bit about what that means and how we're doing that. As I said, in short, we're looking to improve our data collection in math because we think we can make a greater impact on student learning and on student understanding. We're doing this primarily using a new resource called Delta Math. Delta Math provides more immediate data about student learning to inform instruction and provide supports and interventions for students. So in other words, Rick DeFore used to have a saying that we would much rather have a walking autopsy on a student than one that is done long after they have, not a student, but long after someone has passed. And so good data analysis happens when the students are learning in the midst of their learning. A lot of our emphasis of data analysis has been on assessments when you're looking at Mcas that were given months prior, and even some of our common assessments where even a week or two passes, we lose phenomenal opportunities to impact student learning. So Delta Math should provide our teachers with more immediate feedback. When I say immediate, I mean that within the hour to impact instruction the next day. So all of our teachers across grades 6 to 12 have gotten professional development to be able to use Delta Math in a way that impacts their instruction to improve learning. The other thing we really like about Delta Math is it provides feedback immediately to students and even embeds video and exemplars to help them in their learning, so they do not have to wait the next day to even hear from the teacher, or sometimes days later. Finally, the last slide is just a brief summary on some of the district-wide initiatives in our focus for this year. In SEL, you may remember from Sarah Scales' report in the school committee that we've had a really successful SEL district-wide committee, and we're excited to establish an SEL committee at each of our schools, which we think not only will embody the work of the district-wide committee, but allow those smaller committees to adapt and focus on the student, staff, and community at each one of the individual schools and tailor their work accordingly. In the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we continue the growth and development of our equity task force. I've included one of their goals and focuses here to remind you what our equity task force does under the leadership of Jacinia Castro. And then finally, for those of you that don't know, we have, because of the support of this body and of this group, we have really been able to improve the capacity of instructional coaching in our district. And this year, we want to do more to support our coaches so that they are more successful and more effective in their instructional coaching. So we're providing a year-long professional development using the work by Jim Knight and following the definitive guide to instructional coaching. And we've had our first session just a couple weeks ago, and I'm incredibly excited about this group, about their energy, about their hope, and about their commitment to the staff and students of Walpole. And just a reminder, we have a really robust, and some of it's captured here and some of it's not, which is why I wanted to mention it. We have a really robust R&D program in the summer for our teachers. And this year, we had over 40 applications and accepted 37 different research and development projects with over 1,500 hours of work by our teachers in the summer. So we are active, and that's why I said it's getting more complex trying to capture it all on just a few pieces of paper and a couple bullet points. And I think throughout the year, you'll find as our departments as our department chairs arrive to school committee, you'll hear in more detail some of these initiatives, some of these developments, and most importantly, please know that we don't wait to the start of the year to decide how we're going to focus on an area of curriculum. If in the middle of the year there's something that we're lacking or something that we need to shift our focus on, we do so, and we'll make sure we keep you updated, not only in our sub-curriculum meetings, but here at our school committee meetings as well. Of course, take any questions if there are.
Thanks, Bill. It's great to hear the enthusiasm that you have for this. Are there questions or comments for Dr. Hahn?
Thank you. I'm really grateful for this assessment. I mean, it's really powerful. I think you hit on just about every core instructional area that our students are part of, and you spanned K through 12 to see just the depth and breadth of what's being done to improve curriculum access, but also how teaching happens. It's super exciting, and just to know that we're going to have, like you said, opportunities to hear from the different subjects going forward, to just show the good work that's being done.
Yeah.
We're not hiding anything. The curriculum's out there, the improvements are out there, and we obviously, by you sharing, really want to invest with the families in our district about what's going on. The only question I had was, this all sounds great. How are the teachers faring? This is a lot of work across the board.
Yeah, that's a really fair question. I think that our elementary teachers, rightfully so, the idea of shifting from the Readers and Writers Workshop curriculum into the Math Learning Center Bridges curriculum is a lot. But what I'll say we're doing really, really well is we have a supportive structure with our math specialists at the elementary level to ensure our teachers that we're phasing this in, that we don't expect them to take really this abundant amount of resources and get it all the next day. And I think that puts them at ease. So it is a lot. We ask a lot of our teachers. I think I mentioned that the other day. We ask a lot of our teachers. And we just need to continue to do the best we can at the district and central level, at the leadership level, to support them when we're implementing or when we're making shifts in the curriculum. That's one of the reasons why we're excited about the coaches curriculum. We have these fantastic instructional coaches. Dr. Goff and I knew we could do more to support them to be successful. So that question is fair and something that we talk a lot about at the leadership level and at the central level as well.
I love to hear the thoughtfulness, though, that you put into how it goes out, and the partnership between the administration and the teaching staff. Thank you.
Now, if you ask some of our teachers in February, that might be a little unfair.
True.
If I'm being
True.
honest. But.
Nothing looks good in February. Carrie?
Just to comment on the New Bridges program, because I had it explained to me at 2 different grade levels at the open house, and I see photos and I get descriptions and newsletters of what it looks like in the classrooms, and it appears to be really dynamic. It looks as though the students are engaging in lots of different activities, they're working in partners or groups, they're playing games. Just seems like there's a lot of different access points for students to get the conceptual foundation that they need to get for math. And as somebody who really, really hated math all throughout school, I just think it's going to be beneficial for the students to kind of be able to engage with math in a lot of different ways, and so far it just looks really engaging and positive.
Yeah, if you were new to one of our elementary classrooms, you might, or if you're not new, you might think that we bought all new calendars this last year, but we actually didn't. That those calendars that are on all of our teachers' walls are actually part of the Number Corners kit to do exactly what you just said, for students to learn to interact with math in a way that maybe they didn't think of. So some really great resources are happening, things are up that that I didn't even anticipate or know to the depth, but that we didn't even wasn't an expectation that when those boxes arrived that would happen, but our teachers just love the idea of being able to interact with students about math in a more seamless and kind of easier way.
It seems like there's a lot of infrastructure that goes with this
Yes.
program, and that it's really kind of embedded in the classroom environments from what I've seen so far. So I think it's great.
Other questions or comments? I would just add that Sean, Kristen, and I are on the curriculum subcommittee, and we had a chance to go into a lot of depth, and the enthusiasm from Dr. Hahn was just so exciting to see, because I think it felt like we are moving towards a much more normal school year, hopefully, knock on wood, but also just that they've been very thoughtful about how they've planned the year, and tried to embed a lot of good things in all of the pre-K to 12 curriculum. I think sometimes people wonder about social emotional learning. It's just happening in our classrooms all day long, and I think that the thoughtfulness was just really apparent at the subcommittee meeting. So it was great.
And if there are questions, the timing is perfect, because we will have a lot of those curriculum presentations throughout the year. So if there's questions you all have that we should emphasize when those come up, we will. So don't
Perfect.
hesitate to shoot me a
Yeah.
note or let me know.
Great. That will get us to our next item, which is a chance to meet our new Director of English Language Education, but I'll give Dr. Goff the chance to introduce her.
We are very fortunate to have Jill Kimball as our EL director, and she's going to provide an update about English learner education. And a little piece about Jill, when we had, way back when, for those of you educators remember, the SEI endorsement. Yes, well, we had to take them as administrators, and Jill was our instructor. So it's good to not only see her again, but we're very happy and excited that she is at WPS, so welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much for having me. I am thrilled to be here to talk about English learner education. So I just want to start with the forefront of our program, our students. So students in the English learner education program represent 29 countries. The top 5 countries of students in our program are the United States, followed by Brazil, India, Nepal, and El Salvador, and the rest of the breakdown of students in our program is listed there. The program consists of both English learners, otherwise known as ELs, and former English learners, also called with the acronym FELS. Collectively, the students in our program speak 34 languages in addition to English, which is really exciting. We have a great mix of languages up there. The top 5 languages represented in the district are Portuguese, followed by Spanish, then Arabic, Russian, and Nepali. So a little bit about me. My name is Jill Kimball. I was the SEI instructor for Dr. Hahn and Dr. Goff, as well as some other administrators and maybe teachers in the district as well. So I am the pre-K to 12 ELE coordinator and jumping in as a teacher as needed. Other roles that I take on or have taken on in the past have been that of coordinator or director. I've been a teacher, a coach, a mentor. I've been a professional development provider and, as we said, an SEI endorsement course instructor. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education in Spanish, and my Master's of Education is in Bilingual Education in Spanish and English as a second language. In the state of Massachusetts, I have licensure as an administrator in the supervisor-director realm. I hold my English as a second language pre-K to 9 license, as well as my English as a second language 5 to 12 license. I have my bilingual education license in Spanish. I also have my SEI endorsement as both an administrator and a teacher. Prior experience has been throughout the country, actually. So I've worked with both English and Spanish learners. I've worked all grade levels, preschool through 12, as well as adult learners. I've been in urban, suburban, and rural settings in both high and low incidence L districts throughout the country. Again, as I mentioned, I've been an educational assistant throughout the United States due to my husband's employment and moving. It actually afforded me the opportunity to see different systems, which was really an opportunity. Once we moved to Massachusetts, I joined a term on the Massachusetts DESE L Bilingual Education Advisory Council to jump into English language instruction in Massachusetts, and I still am a member of the Massachusetts English Learners Leadership Council. So talking about the rest of the instructors in the program, we actually have 2 pieces of the program. In the ELE program, we have English as an additional language and SEI Sheltered English Immersion. The Sheltered English Immersion program consists of English as an additional language. There are other program options that are out there in the state for dual language, that's two-way immersion or transitional bilingual education. Any of those programs include the English as an additional language component with it. So in our EAL world, we do have 7 teachers of EAL. We are fortunate to have 1 teacher at every school, which is excellent. On the other side of the house, in our Sheltered English Immersion program, we do have 246 of our teachers and administrators who have the SEI endorsement, which is wonderful. The breakdown on that in K-5, we have currently 52 teachers who have English learners in their classrooms. 49 of those teachers are SEI endorsed, which gives us just over 94% of our teachers at the K-5 level who have the endorsement and also have English learners. In the 6-12 level, we have 66 core content teachers of our English learners, and 65 of those teachers are SEI endorsed, which brings us just over 98% of teachers who have Ls who are SEI endorsed at this time. Now, for those 4 teachers who have Ls this year who aren't endorsed, it's actually a really exciting opportunity because they can take the course while they have the English learners in their class. And really, the Department of Education designed it that way, in that you had to have an English learner in your classroom to be identified to take the course in the first place. And the idea really is that you're taking the course and learning the practices and the strategies while you have an English learner in your classroom. So it's really a benefit that we are able to work with these 4 teachers to earn the SEI endorsement within this 12-month period that they actually have the English learners with them in the classroom. So that's pretty exciting. Turning back to our students. So again, I have the English learners in the blue bars and the former English learners in the orange bars. As you can see with the schools at the bottom, we do have obviously a different number of English learners in each of our school buildings. Some have more and less. The former English learner side of the program is basically after a student exits English learner education. We monitor the students for 4 years to ensure that they're having success outside of English learner programming. After that 4-year period, the student is then considered exited and not part of ELE programming. So the orange bars are the students that we are monitoring right now throughout the 4-year period. Should a student not be having success, then we can pull them back into ELE programming. So while some schools have higher numbers of English learners in their classrooms and lower numbers, that doesn't necessarily mean that the instructional hours will be higher in those schools with greater numbers of English learners, because our instruction is actually based upon proficiency level. The students who have lower levels of English proficiency actually need more instruction than the students who are at the higher levels. And this is according to WIDA, which was adopted by Massachusetts through the Retail Initiative. And the WIDA English proficiency levels run from level 1, which is a student who is new to learning English, through level 6, which is a student who is reaching native language proficiency in English. Any student who is below a 2.5, so our 1.0s to 2.4s, is considered a foundational English learner. That's represented in the orange. We have 52 students, or 34% of our L population, is in the foundational program. And the guidelines for the foundational program through the Department of Education are for 90 minutes of instruction. That's EAL, English as an Additional Language instruction, per day. In the blue section, the 100 students, about 65% of the program, are our transitional English learners. Those are students who are 2.5 up through 4.2. While WIDA levels go to 6, students can exit at the 4.2 level. Once they earn a 4.2, we look at other criteria to see if they are having success in the content area classes, and we can exit at the 4.2 level. Any student who assesses at a 2.5 to 4.2 level is in the transitional program, and the requirement from the Department of Education is 45 minutes per day. So the foundational students actually receive double what the transitional students receive for EAL, English as an Additional Language instruction, per day. So in the English learner education world, here are kind of some of the responsibilities that I have taken on as the coordinator, and just some of the things that we do. This is clearly not an exhaustive list of everything that happens, but just to highlight some of the areas where we work in English learner programming. So the first thing is in compliance and accountability. Obviously looking at eligibility of students, placement in English learner programming, and the reclassification or the exit of those students. Following along with state mandated reporting, making sure that we're upholding both the Retail Initiative and the Look Act implementation. Retail Initiative coming out around 2012-13, which has brought the SEI endorsement, and then the Look Act being signed in November 2017 with implementation in the 2019 school year. Also looking at state and federal guideline compliance. So those are some of the programming aspects that I am working on right now. As far as the coordination piece, we're looking at instruction and scheduling in both the English as an Additional Language and the Sheltered English Immersion world, and bringing those together effectively. Definitely state mandated proficiency assessments. In Massachusetts, the state mandated proficiency assessment for our English learners is the Access Assessment. It's taken every year, January, February, and it does measure English learner proficiency on a yearly basis. Curriculum and progress reporting are obviously ongoing, as well as making sure that we are holding our department meetings and providing professional development to both EAL and SEI program pieces. Student, family, and outreach and support, clearly always ongoing as well. L Parent Advisory Council, that was actually part of the Look Act, so that was initiated with that 2019 implementation. We have student instructional support meetings. In the ELE world, we call them LATs, LATs, Language Acquisition Team Meetings. Same idea. It's how we're supporting students' language acquisition throughout their day. The Seal of Biliteracy promotion, again, coming out of Look Act implementation. And then obviously translation of all of our ELE communications that are going out to our parents as requested. And one of the final pieces is looking at ELD, or English Language Development Coaching. So through coaching, I'm actually looking at collecting data to drive instructional capacity, both in the EAL world and in the SEI world of things. And so in my time here, I've really been able to go across the district and look at strengths and opportunities, and it is so exciting to see the dedication and commitment to the success of all students in every building. I have been called upon so many times to come in and provide strategies and supports. I have been able to observe classrooms, and everybody has been so enthusiastic about, receiving new ideas and welcoming new initiatives. So that's been wonderful. It's definitely a great strength of the district. Also, the collaborative teaching and learning communities, not only is it sharing strategies with one another, but people are sharing strategies and ideas amongst themselves, really to grow the language capacity of our English learners, both in linguistic quantity and in linguistic quality. So really, really exciting things to see as I travel throughout the district. Some of the opportunities that I identified, again, I see them as exciting because it's something that we can look at to see how we can do better. They're not unique to Walpole. Any program can always look at ways to see how they can improve or do better. And so in looking at that, one opportunity I noticed was in strengthening homeschool relationships. I was really fortunate to be able to attend many of the open house and back to school nights throughout the district, and I got to interact with parents. I actually was an interpreter at a few of those evenings, so I was able to speak with parents and really find out some of their goals for their school, for their children. So that was exciting, and I was able to gather some ideas on how we can strengthen those connections with many of the parents in our English learner education program. And the second piece, I listed increasing program effectiveness and instructional capacity, and I know that that's a very kind of vague and broad opportunity, but as I was going around, I more divided opportunities into these two areas. When we talk about increasing program effectiveness, a few of the things that I looked at are using consistent language and messaging. And again, this is something that is not unique to Walpole. The Department of Education, WEDA, the federal government, are actually all using different acronyms, different terms. So we're looking to get the language consistent amongst all of our buildings, and then getting the messaging about our English learner programming consistent. So in that area, we've been able to start to work toward that consistent messaging and language. Updating parent notifications and adding English learner success plans was another area of program effectiveness that I looked at. Basically, in complying with the Retail Initiative and the Look Act, we need to add some programming dynamics, such as updating parent notifications. Through the Look Act, there's really been an addition of parent empowerment, which is amazing to see, but that also requires more paperwork, more information, clearly, that's going out to make sure that everyone's informed. So we're updating those. We're also adding English learner success plans. This is, again, something that came out of the Look Act. With the Look Act, it brought benchmark notifications, and these plans, which basically are plans that English learners will be placed on that identify language goals should the students not meet their benchmark score on that yearly Access Proficiency Assessment. Now, the benchmark score isn't a cut score for every student like other state assessments might be. Each student has an individualized score based upon their language score when they started and how many years they're in the program, theoretically to exit within a 6-year period. So each student's score is a little different, but if a student doesn't meet that score on Access, the student needs to be put on the English Learner Success Plan, and this is also coming from the Look Act. So that's one other thing that we're doing there. And the last thing I looked at for program effectiveness is centralizing the eligibility and placement and reclassification processes. They were happening right now in 7 different locations, and there are multiple data points when a student is eligible for the program and we're placing them and reclassifying them. So bringing that all under one roof provides for consistency and accountability in our state reporting. With the piece of instructional capacity, some things that I looked at are providing professional development and coaching to add strategies and practices to our teacher skill sets, again, in both the SEI and the EAL worlds classrooms, so that we can advance language quantity and quality in both areas. And also identifying teacher and student schedule changes that we can change to maximize that instructional capacity and basically learning opportunities. And to explain that a bit further, in the WEDA world, so as Massachusetts adopted WEDA with the Retail Initiative, we can group a little bit differently than grade level clusters. So WEDA level clusters are kindergarten, first grade, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. So there are 6 different clusters. But when we instruct foundational or transitional students, we can group them by cluster instead of by grade level. So looking at how we can cluster students to increase the instructional capacity of the students within a certain WIDA grade level cluster will actually afford us more opportunities to potentially work with more students throughout the day. The other piece of that is looking at SEI schedules so that when we are providing the EAL instruction, we are providing it at an optimal time and we're not pulling a student from math or a content area that might create a gap. So those are some of the pieces that we're looking for on increasing the instructional capacity of our English learner program on both the EAL and SEI sides of the house. But I know I'm seeing new strengths and opportunities every day, and I'm really excited by it. So, so thank you so much for letting me present today. If there are any questions or comments, I'm happy to.
Questions or comments? Yes, Jen.
I just wanted to say congratulations for your enthusiasm. It's amazing and infectious. So it's great. And
Thank
it's
you.
fantastic to hear everything you're doing and it's a very complicated area, so thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I do have a passion for what I do, and I do love what I do, so I'm glad that that shows through.
Definitely.
That was going to be my comment, too. We had heard during the curriculum subcommittee about your skill, your passion, and your energy, and you sure are not disappointing in any way.
Thank you.
And I loved the visuals of, and it was a pretty way of presenting the diversity of the students that come to school every day here. I thought it was just beautifully done, so thank you. Carrie, and then Sean.
Yes, thank you so much. This was so informative, and I'm hoping that your first two images maybe can make their way into the meeting summary so that the community can have more education about who our English learner students are. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have guessed that Nepali was one of the top languages in the community. I just didn't know that. And
Yeah.
I think sharing this with the community would be really beneficial. When we have department heads come before us, we often will ask, you know, if we had unlimited resources and we could kind of give your program, you know, you felt it most needed, what that would be. And I know you've only just arrived, so maybe you can't answer that question tonight, but I mean, if you can, by all means, but if you can't, maybe just something to be thinking about for the
Sure.
next time we see
No,
you.
I'm happy to jump in. No,
Yeah,
thank
of
you. I
course.
appreciate the question. So again, I know I just said increasing program effectiveness and instructional capacity, but some of the resources that may be beneficial to work toward that are one thing in particular is a database. Much like we gather information in our student information system, there are databases that we can use for English learner education that provide all of those pieces that we need to implement and facilitate all of the paperwork and necessities for retail and for LookAct implementation. So that is one piece that might help to kind of grow the program capacity a little bit in that area. Another thing that I am looking at, and again, still observing in multiple classrooms, is looking at how we're using curricular resources in the English as an additional language side of the house, and how we might be able to better use mentor texts and connect with the great literacy and math work that's happening in those curricular areas to really strengthen the language that's being taught in the English as an additional language side of the house in order for students to have success when they enter those other curricular areas. So that's another area that we're looking at to develop resources that we might use in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I just want to echo all the excitement and encouraging things you said about the program. I can imagine, we talk a lot about access to education here and making sure all of our students have that access. And, all of this shows that, we're making great strides in making sure all of our learners, regardless of the language they speak or, any associated barriers are, addressed and brought down so we can have a productive education. We can help them to feel at home because that's hard sometimes. You're kind of in your own cultural bubble sometimes, especially if you're a new family coming in, and being able to, see the things that you're hoping to do with the program and expand it, especially the Homeschool partnership. That's great to give families a place that they can, truly call home, and the school and resources that can stem beyond just, the learning, but meeting the needs of families as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Goff?
Thanks, Jill, great job.
Thank you.
Just, I like the slide about all the different responsibilities and the components, because it really goes to show how much we needed this position and why we needed it. I think, we tried the best we could to communicate that to, FinCom and also school committee. And we really appreciate your support in getting this position, because when you look at all of this, it's not only to support our students, but even supporting our staff. And I could see that. She wasn't at some of them, she was at all of the open houses. But just the staff coming in when Jill came in, and knowing, she was there to not only be there for the families, but also to support our staff and how they're utilizing you in terms of getting resources and looking at, different interventions and instructional strategies that we need to do. So it's so important, and not even it's more important even today. So thank you for that, and welcome. And your husband can't move again, so.
I did tell him that. I did tell him if he goes, I'm staying.
We like that answer. That's a good one. Can I just ask you one more question?
Sure.
You mentioned the EL PAC. Do you know when the next meeting is? Just so that if there are people who might be interested in attending, we have a vast listening audience, so.
Yes. No, and I appreciate that. So that is something that I think we're still in discussion about.
Okay.
I know we have a very enthusiastic group of parents that's leading our LPAC, which is really exciting. So those are things that we're looking at right now into what maybe our initial next steps might be, as far as, and I did get a lot of information from the back to school night about some of those initial things that would be very beneficial for that next meeting. So we will definitely get that information out as soon as we have that finalized.
And maybe we could advertise it at a future school committee meeting.
Oh, that would be great.
Because, in addition to families who have just recently come to our country, I think there might be either high school students who would be interested in coming to help practice their languages, or just people who want to be generally supportive. So it would be good to share that information.
That's excellent. Great idea. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for coming. And just like the students, we're not going to take it personally if you decide to leave. We have a few more business items to attend to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Okay, that gets us to our superintendent report.
Do you
Oh,
wanna
no, it
vote?
doesn't. It gets us to our vote on town meeting articles, sorry. So, Dr. Goff, do you want to take it, or do you want me to take it?
Just at the fall town meeting, as a reminder, Monday, October 17th at Walpole High School. Keep that Wednesday date open too, in case, it's a Wednesday, in case it spills over. But we have the following articles for town meeting that relate to Walpole Public Schools that we need your vote for approval. So we have Article 13 is our article to see if the town will vote to transfer free cash for a sum of money to supplement the FY23 school budget. And the amounts that are right there in your packet. So we have the Medicaid receipts that are there are 665,755. Then we've got 31,700 for the high school parking fees. And then we just have the 1,600 in McKinney-Vento transportation, and that's our transportation of homeless students. So as part of our budget process every year, the school department estimates this reimbursement amount based on the current year expenses and reduces their appropriated budget request for the following fiscal year for this amount. So we would just ask the school committee to vote to approve it. I know sometimes we do this right before town meeting, but we had the opportunity at the school committee to do this.
Yeah, so we just need a motion to approve the Article 13 amounts as listed in our packet.
Through you, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve Article 13 for the amounts as listed in our packet, with gratitude that we don't have to get to town meeting early to do it on Monday.
Second.
We have a motion by Bill, a second by Jen. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 600. And just related to that, Articles 5, 6, and 7 all have a little bit to do with us. 5 and 6 are capital budget articles that the school department will benefit from. And Article 7 is setting up or putting money into the capital stabilization fund. And we were involved in some discussion at the Finance Committee about that, because originally we were going to be requesting money at the fall town meeting. Very likely in the spring, we are going to be looking to take money out of this capital stabilization account. And it's new to town meeting members. We have never taken money out of the regular stabilization fund, but the capital stabilization fund is newly created, and it is meant to be used as opposed to the normal stabilization fund, which you save and you rarely ever use. So there might be some questions related to Article 7, because there was some discussion at the FinCom meeting about that.
Through you,
Mr.
Madam Chair,
Buckley?
would it be beneficial for this body, which is all town meeting members anyway, and that is going to be looking to specifically utilize that article to take a favorable view of it tonight beforehand, or?
For Article 7?
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't be too surprised if a question comes up about it. And, I think that so long as the town meeting body realizes that we're likely the ones to be coming to ask for it,
You might as well suggest it too, and be
It-
positive on the way in.
a positive vote on the way in is a good idea, yes.
I would make that motion to take a vote affirmatively in support of Article 7 for the capital stabilization fund creation. It's Article 7, right?
It is Article 7, and if I'm not mistaken, we have already created it. This is putting money into it.
Appropriation, okay. She's got a town meeting warrant right there, that's awesome.
It doesn't list the amount, though, in here.
Is that the one where there was
I can
multiple
look it up.
different?
Yes, I believe it
Options
got
offered.
moved up to 1.1 million.
I can look it
Yeah,
up
that
for
would
you
be
in
great.
1 second. Our handy dandy warrant preview on future events.
We appreciate the handy-dandy access to it.
Capital stabilization would transfer 1.15 million of free cash.
Into the stabilization fund.
Capital stabilization.
Does that
Yeah,
fit your
as-
motion, Mr.
Yes, as
Buckley?
reported by Mr. Nizio.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a positive motion to support Article 7. Are there any questions, discussion? Mr. Hearn?
Yeah, I still don't know that I'm 100% clear on the motive for doing that. Like, I understand that it puts it in capital stabilization, which sets it aside for that specific usage, but it also presents parameters on accessing that supersede those of just if it were to remain in free cash.
I was-
2/3, right, to take it out?
It takes a 2/3 vote to take it out, yes. As somebody who's arguing both sides of that discussion, I think the majority of people felt that so long as we're being straightforward about it, and that's why I brought it up tonight, so that everybody is aware that it's money that we previously thought we'd be asking for this fall. We decided to delay based on the fact that we really want to be sure that we have the money we need for the middle school project, which we will know fairly soon. I think the argument was that this is what that account is created for. We happen to be the first ones who are very likely going to be asking to access it. And while there was no promises made, I think we made that point pretty clearly to both the capital budget and the finance committee. So that's why I would be in favor of it, but it's worth the discussion.
Through you, Madam Chair, obviously, free cash has a wider series of speaking carefully, like mouths to feed with it, perhaps. And
Usage
and
of,
usage.
yep.
Permissible usage is one, but also sort of areas of town concern and budget that we'll be looking to nibble at it. So I think it's good to be, you know, it could go to OPEB, it could go to other sort of things. And it's good to sort of really memorialize a commitment to these type of capital projects. You know?
Okay, so one more question. So you, just learning about the fund, you know, kind of as the rest of the town is. So we kind of see this as a new trend. Like as projects come up, this would be something that, you know, funds might be attributed to as well in the future.
That's the
I
sense
mean,
that
that's-
I have, Sean.
And not that you guys actually have an answer for it, but just that's the goal going forward.
That's the way I've
Okay.
heard it described. That's the way I heard it described at the Finance Committee
Yeah.
meeting that you were there.
Mhm.
I think that the thinking is that when you know you have costly projects coming along, save up for them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that that resonates with people. That's what we do in our home lives. And, you know, I think that that is the thinking. And I know that there has been support for the school department in a couple of different ways. And I think they appreciated the fact that we want to make sure we're on solid ground with the middle school project before we go forward. But that we have other needs, namely the high school would be our next one. But, so yes, I think the intention is that this would be a practice going forward kind of forever. Jen?
So because of the fact that the middle school is coming first, part of the intent is also to make sure if we needed to address something with the middle school, we would have the funds to be able to do so before we moved on to the next project. So
Yep.
in my head, from my discussions, that was, you know, what I got out of it was we were being responsible to make sure that we're not handling too many things at once, given, you know, the uncertainties with construction costs right now, because just from having been on the middle school building committee, it's, you know, there are a lot of unknowns we're dealing with, and it's unprecedented times in terms of like construction costs changing and things, and we have had to make cuts, and there's another round coming, so we didn't want to go too far and spend money on something else. So that was how I was viewing it, and I think it's a responsible thing to do to make sure that, you know, the projects that we're working on right now is going to be taken care of as it needs to be before we tackle something else, and that gives us a little bit of flexibility, so that's why I'd be in favor of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to make tonight, yep.
No, I think it's just good public management in the sense that, to make an analogy, the free cash is like a checking account. It rises and falls, and this is more like a savings account that's like you get when you're a kid going towards the trip to Canopy Lake at the end of 8th grade or something of that nature. I think this, we're telegraphing where we're gonna create this, and that sort of revolving nature of free cash, it like the tides goes up and down, and I think we as a committee have been really good at talking about the needs, not just middle school right now that are immediate, but needs that we understand we can't fulfill. Like we've talked about what's going on with preschool 5, 6, 7, 10 years out, and so by creating this sort of thing, it shows a long-term commitment to stabilizing and socking away. That's not. We'll have other discussions as well, especially we always have a discussion about the operating budget versus funds that are portions of our need that are eaten by revolving funds. So I think that could change as well. It's so determinant on things like, you know, new growth, building permits, and the like. This kind of telegraphs it as a priority and doesn't require that kind of fold over. So it also makes the town, you know, through our auditing agencies, makes us look like we know what we're doing and that we're really committed and we have a long-term plan, which is what they like, right, is stability. So it's a good idea, I think.
Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 600. Great. That now gets us to the superintendent's report.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Just wanted to let school committee know it was a great evening last Friday night on the football field. It was known as Youth Night, and we had all the youth football teams there. It was pretty amazing, and also with our young football players and our cheerleaders, joining the high school cheerleaders from elementary through middle school. And I just want to thank the youth coaches for helping to make that possible, because they came down, they were with their teams and helping to cheer the high school on, so it was really nice to see, so I wanted to thank them. Dr. Hahn and I were able to go to the cross-country track meet yesterday, and it was also senior day or senior night, so it was great to see. I know Mr. Ahern's daughter ran a great race yesterday, so it was a good day for all, and it's really nice that a parent told me that also the middle school cross-country is back, so we're starting to see a pickup of some of our activities. In your packets, for me, you have the October 1 enrollments are there. So you can see the total enrollment, I think, is 3,706. We'll continue to update those as new enrollments come in. They're slowing down, but they're still coming in. Also in your packets, I thought you would be interested to see that these are actually screenshots of what's known as the Walpole Public Schools Branding Style Guide. This was actually developed by our Director of Digital Learning, Tom Reeve. And what it does is, the purpose is really to assist primarily staff in creating consistent and recognizable branding in our documents, in our communication, in our presentations. So for both the W and the Timberwolf logos. And you can take a look that it really shows you through the pages. It even has is so individualized as the color palette and what to use and how to use it and how to use the logos. And there's some resources for the different backgrounds, but then also templates for our staff that they can use through Google. And we recently received an email from Youth Lacrosse who wanted a high-resolution version of the new Timberwolves logo. And they were also, the girls lacrosse organization was updating their website and their social media and flyers and signs, so they wanted to incorporate the logo in their branding. So we were able to send him the site, and he replied that, thought the new site was excellent. He said, nice to see that we have a style guide for all the town to follow. Thank you. So it's on the website. I'll make sure that I include it in my superintendent's newsletter, and we have it under the About page, but thanks to Tom Reeve for putting this together, because it was a nice job. We also had, wanted to thank school committee that we had an early release day last Friday. If you remember, you voted then in, because the only early release day is parent-teacher conferences. It was very well used. The elementary staff, Bridges, the math training program, they spent the whole afternoon on that. The middle schools, Dr. Hahn were able to get down to the middle schools and see the principals give a presentation on MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support for our students to make sure we're tailoring our interventions, both instructionally, but also behavioral and emotional, so social, emotional, and they did a great job with that. And the high school all focused on data analysis and ways to improve also their programming and curriculum, so, and also the math, that included the Delta math, so thank you for that, because, like I said, they wouldn't have been able to do this until December.
Yeah.
Right, December. Speaking of conferences, just a reminder, we have parent-teacher conferences that'll be coming up, so for families to check their websites. Based on the feedback we received from families, we are offering conferences of an option of in-person and virtual. So they sent that home, and you still have to sign up and register, but families like that, so we're going with that again. Also wanted to remind that we are still partnering with the Williams-James College Interface Referral Services for mental health support, so that our community has access to the mental health referral hotline. It's a free confidential mental health outpatient referral for children, for adults, and for our families in Walpole. And what happens is callers are matched with licensed mental health providers from Interface. And they will help determine and help get people to the next steps and the resources that they may be seeking. So that's still active, and that's on our webpage, and it's also on the town's webpage. Also, student Mcas performance reports were just received by the district. So the schools are in the process of stuffing those envelopes, and they should be mailed home next week. As a reminder, we've got the Fields Leach scholarships. They're slow coming in, but I think they're usually slow, and then they come in at the end, right? So October 31st, right, Mary, is the deadline. So really, application found on the district website, or they can come to the superintendent's office. And to be eligible for these scholarships, the student must be a graduate of Walpole High School. And two last things, I want to publicly thank the art teachers for coming to Town Hall to get the student artwork up. We actually had several student visitors with their parents and grandparents coming through and pointing out their artwork, so thank you. That does not go unnoticed. And October is National Principals Month, so this is a time for us to really celebrate and honor our principals for their leadership and their dedication to their students and the communities they serve. So we really appreciate and thank our WPS principals and assistant principals. And that's it.
Sounds good. Sounds like we should be appreciative of you and your central office staff, so
Thank you.
congratulations. Okay, that gets us to the middle school building project.
So today we had a working group meeting that primarily focused on, safety and security, cam replacements, the design of the entrance and so forth. Aside from that, not much to report.
Middle school's plugging along. Eversource is putting poles in, right?
Yep, they're trying to get some of the electrical in for the project itself, not for the building, but for the project. Be temporary, but
And getting
lot
the
of- lot of-
path paved eventually.
a lot of earth being moved.
A lot of earth being moved, yes.
And are we still basically on target for getting some financial information in November?
Yes.
Yay. That's important.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anything else, Mr. Breen?
No.
Okay, that gets us to the high school project. Is there anything to report there?
No, I think we had a really productive workshop last week. And yeah, we're waiting for additional conversations to happen, and
Right, and I think what we'll do, I was just talking to Sean, that we're usually on an every other week middle school project meeting, high school project meeting. I think what we're gonna do is probably try to hold that project meeting next Thursday to at least just give information about what occurred during the workshop to some of the town, to Jim and Patrick, and then take a look at timeline and making sure that we meet to determine how we're moving forward in terms of the design.
That sounds like good timing, because especially if we get information about the costs at the middle school, that's a big question in most people's minds, so
Right.
that's good. Okay, subcommittee activity, are there any subcommittees here to report? Yeah, Karen?
Earlier this evening, we had our Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee meeting, where Dr. Goff shared her preliminary goals for the year, a lot of which are sort of a continuation of prior year's goals to maintain and build on progress that's been made. So I believe Dr. Goff's gonna finalize those and share them with, share the final version with us at our next meeting.
Yeah, and we also had a curriculum subcommittee meeting, but Mr. Hahn, or Dr. Hahn, sorry, covered it very well at the beginning part of tonight's meeting. Okay, anything else on subcommittees? If not, that gets us to citizens' comments. Nothing there. Approval of warrants, donations, and minutes.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following expense warrants for the amounts listed in your packet. Those warrants are 223013, 223014, and 223015.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600.
I'd also make a motion to approve the following payroll warrant for the amount listed in your packet, and that is warrant number 2313PA.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. And that gets us to, what's next? Donations? Yeah, sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the following gifts system-wide from Scott Vogel. 7 lightly used iPads of various sizes totaling $1,750.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. And we have some minutes to approve.
Through you, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the September 29th, 2022 school committee meeting minutes, the October 4th, 2022 curriculum subcommittee meeting minutes, and the October 4th, 2022 school committee workshop meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 600. And with that, we just need,
To make a motion to adjourn.
all those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Love the fact that we don't have to do roll call. 600.